Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast. I'm Peter Raybar.
And I'm Laura Brownstein. How are you, Peter?
I'm good, Laura, although I'm a little disappointed that Taylor Swift didn't accept our invite to be on a podcast and she chose her boyfriend.
I know she was like, Kels Brothers or Across the Bar.
Yeah, especially after Travis's big role in Happy Gilmore 2. Just a really
which I started watching and it's so good. I have to finish it. But I have to say, again, as a Gen Xer, I loved it.
Yeah, of course. It was exactly what you wanted from that movie.
It's what the world needs.
Yeah, exactly.
More silly, cute, let's all laugh together moments, because usually we're laughing at each other at the moment.
Well, yeah, why not? And we've talked about it a couple of times this summer in relation to other movies. Like, everything doesn't need to be taken so seriously. Like, you could just sit back and watch something and laugh and have a good hour and a half and move on.
It's true.
Without trying to politicize it.
Yeah, we need good summer fun. Okay, and we're in different places this week.
Yeah, we are. We flipped locations.
I'm back at home base in Manhattan, so I'm watching the city.
Great. You're in the office.
I'm in the office.
I'm out of here.
And that leads to our topics today.
Yeah.
Are in-person job interviews back? Why are there decreasing numbers of women and mothers leaving the workforce again? I mean, the reasons are obvious, but we'll discuss some of them and what bosses can do to try to help on that. The most fabulous expense scandal I have seen in a minute, and I'm sure we'll come up with some other things.
Yeah, maybe some heroes, maybe some zeros.
Heroes, zeros, backlight. So but I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Today, I work in law enforcement in Washington, D.C. Do I now report to who? Like, is my chain of command the same, or did my chain of command change?
Well, the top of your chain of command changed, but with the announcement yesterday that this administration's federalizing or taking federal control of the Washington police force. So the top levels have changed, and there's going to be other patrols on the street, whether it's, National Guard or federal policing agencies. Now, there's some rules around this that the administration's supposed to be following. As of this recording, they haven't been, in terms of reporting to Congress and whatnot.
It's only 48 hours that they have leave to do this, right?
48 hours, and then there's, I think, a 30-day extension that could be employed with notice to Congress. I think half the Congress has been on vacation because of the Epstein scandal. So, who knows who's overseeing any of this? The administration doesn't really seem to care. And as someone, I visit Washington quite frequently. I know you do too. Sure, there are issues, just like there are in any city.
Crime is down, though.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers say it's down. I wonder what's really going on here. There's some suspicion around the incident involving Big Balls, who's the Doge staffer who led to all this, him getting beat up by who knows who.
Wait, I don't even know that whole story. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, well, the reason cited by the administration for this action is that one of the Doge staffers was allegedly beaten to death. Now, there's a lot of, there was a picture posted of him.
I mean, was there a police report?
There's a lot of, loose ends, let's say. There's a lot of loose ends. So, there's that. And then there's, statements about how this is going to be a test for other cities and other cities that could potentially be targeted. So
it's very scary. Am I right to be finding this as scary as I do?
Yeah, of course. More people should. I mean, it's crazy that people aren't.
Okay.
In my view.
In fact, people are not focusing on that. They are still focusing on Sydney Sweeney. Can we discuss that for a moment? How is this still going on that people are talking about Sydney Sweeney and this American Eagle jeans ad?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of smart people are asking that. Like, how does this story have the legs that it has? I mean, what started out with was some controversy over the statements in the advertisement about her having great genes and her sexualism and the fact that she was a blonde white woman. And
I think it was just that I have good genes, and that was sort of seeming like because I'm blonde and blue-eyed.
Yeah, and as with anything in our times, people just took that and ran 100 different directions with it and twisted it. Some people said it was not diverse and not representative of women and demeaning to women. Some people compared her to Nazis. Some people said she was the hottest conservative ever. I mean, there's a lot of different angles I mean,
I
but
thought
as
they
a,
should have been more careful with the language of the ad,
yeah,
but this is just giving MAGA a chance to MAGA.
right, right. I mean, as a, corporate comms expert, would you have green-lighted this?
Like to think I would have caught it as a corporate comms person and said, you know what? We are going to get some blowback. So let's, even if we still decide to do the ad, let's prepare ourselves for it. They seemed completely unprepared for the shenanigans. But, their Instagram is up, even though you just read foot traffic on the stores are down.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of different stories about the numbers. The sales immediately surged, the Instagram traffic immediately surged. Today, there was a report that foot traffic in their stores are down. I mean, part of me thinks the company was struggling so much that they knew all the possible
Hail Mary.
implications, and they said, "Forget it. Who cares? Like any press is good press, right?"
Which
And
I
we're
get that
struggling
also.
as a company.
It would be really interesting to see, and it would be very interesting to have access to look at the numbers to see if sales to non-Caucasian young people went down. Like if
Right.
people of color saw that and said, fuck you, or if they were just like, whatever, they're jeans.
Right. I mean, when you're an executive making a decision on these, you're not only looking at your customers, but you're also thinking about and the potential impact on your customers. You should also be thinking about the potential impact on your employees. And how does this play with your employee base,
Yeah, are people
And
quitting over this?
yeah, so we haven't heard stories about that, but that's what I would be interested to
Yeah.
see in the coming weeks. Are they losing executives? Are they losing other employees who felt like this wasn't representative of the brand or beneficial to the brand, or another example of bad decision making by this management team? So we'll see how that plays out over time. That's much more meaningful to me than
Yeah.
some of the
Sales
ridiculous
blip for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. In-person job interviews. Why are they back?
Well, it's a really
saying-
interesting
Yeah.
interesting trend that's coming back is the in-person job interviews. And it's not just because companies want people in offices, but it's also to combat fraud on several different accounts. So we've read stories in the past couple of months about essentially fake workers that come from countries like North Korea that are engaging in corporate espionage. Read stories about other workers.
Like, what do these people, if they're fake, end up like doing an interview still? Like, do they actually want to get the job?
Well, companies that just interview via video conference, I mean, we've learned that can just be manipulated, basically. Yeah. And unless you see the person live in person, in the flesh, you're not sure what you're going to get, right? And so there's been corporate espionage stories. There's been accounts of people holding multiple jobs, multiple identities.
On the other side, I will say after the campaign, I was applying for some jobs and I must have given my number to some site that I shouldn't have that sold it. Because I get these creepy texts all the time now about we're looking to hire people just like you. Right. Text us. That is also this is fake. The fakeness is on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a lot of it. There's also, I thought one thing that was really interesting is that companies are trying to combat people who are using AI tools to cheat in the job interviews, who are basically typing in queries during their interviews as they go. Yeah. So my advice has always been bring people in at least once, especially if you're in an office company. You have to.
I think it's important also to realize, listen, I know there are people that this will hugely inconvenience, people with childcare issues or immune issues themselves, but it's a really good idea to go into a workplace before you go work there, if they are in person at all, to see what the vibe is, to see what the culture is, to see if it feels friendly or if people look just unhappy and stressed in the offices. Don't you think?
Right. Of course. It works both ways. If you're an employer, of course you'd want someone to come in just to get a check on the chemistry. I mean, how many times I've worked with people who are great on paper, and then you meet them in person, you're like, wow, what a nightmare. Right? I mean, they have no sense of humor. They're, too serious.
It's just more exposure. I've had some jobs that were fully remote, people that I worked with for 6 months and I never met them in person. So I think it's only if there is an in-person culture. If there is a Zoom or Slack culture, you want to see what that's like, I guess.
But regardless, I mean,
is it legal
the downside to meeting
in-person
someone?
Interview?
What's the downside to meeting someone once? I mean, That's not asking too much, is it?
Okay, but is it legal to ask? Like, can you make that a requirement?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. As long as you're doing it for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do worry that it will hurt people with disabilities. You know, our friend Lauren Rotolo, amazing advocate for the differently abled, talks about how interviews via Zoom were a great leveler for a lot of people with disabilities.
Well, look, if you're in that position where you're unable to go in or you need some accommodation to go in, you are protected under the law, and
Yeah.
you can ask for that, and you can request that, and
It's
that's certainly
more being perceived, people were able to be perceived not as a differently abled person on a Zoom interview.
right. And look, I've heard similar stories from clients who are pregnant, who always dreaded
Yeah.
being pregnant and going on job interviews and having that used against them, and being on Zoom, and that's not as apparent and not an issue.
Yeah.
Of course,
That's a good point.
if you get the job, it's still something that's going to come up pretty quickly.
Well, this leads to the fact that more women and especially mothers are again leaving the workforce. Beginning of COVID, women had to leave the workforce because of childcare. Then things got a little bit easier. More women were coming back to the workforce. Remote work was making it possible for people who never thought they could go back to their careers, go back to it. And now that's changing. What are you seeing and hearing?
Well, again, it's good to see. I mean, the underlying issue is not good to see, but it is good to see the affirmation of things we've said in prior episodes of Across the Bar. I mean, this is a trend we talked about several weeks ago when we discussed the fact that elimination of DEI policies is really hitting women the hardest, in my view, and also in your experience. And here we have some numbers to back it up. And so there's a number of different trends that are coming together to produce this effect. One of them is certainly ending DEI policies and pivoting away from it. And I would say companies are feeling more freedom to make choices free of scrutiny from the government and other sources of accountability.
It's also, when you hear people like Jamie Dimon, who we talk about all the time, saying having such a lack of interest in his workers as people, private lives, when he's like, oh, you can work from home on Saturday and Sunday like me. That is telling employers they can go back to being more demanding, I think.
Well, and also just getting into bad habits. And there's a reason why these laws and protections existed, is because employers needed some accountability. But also
what you do if you're a leader, like let's say, you're like a director at VP level. So you're hiring, you're running a team, hiring, but you're not necessarily making company policy. How can you try to keep the women and mothers, parents on your team that are getting kind of hit?
I mean, to me, this comes back to one of my central talking points on this issue, the return to office issue, and also hiring issues, that it should never be one size fits all. I mean, if someone's valuable to you and they're a good contributor, there should be a way that you can accommodate whatever issue it is to help keep them contributing. So if they need, a day to work from home, how is that different from giving someone a bonus or something like that? I mean,
get creative.
Yeah.
And think about what matters to that employee. Like,
right.
To your point, it shouldn't be one size fits all. Some people, the time is going to matter more than money.
Exactly. And this gets back to a point where, it is my firm belief that a lot of these return to office policies are driven by the fact that it's too hard for managers to just manage people separately. They'd rather have one size fits all. I think in the end, that is detrimental to the health and productivity of the company and employee morale. And it does have a disparate impact on groups like, working mothers, or, as we discussed, people with disabilities, or even people with long commutes. I mean, doesn't mean they're not valuable, just because they have a long commute. So I've dealt with these issues throughout my career. They're very much more pronounced right now, and having some real impact.
Yeah. There are ways, though, if you're creative, to think about how to keep these
of course
teammates. And if you're an employee at someplace where you're not feeling like you have the freedom you need, people are hiring again.
Yeah. And this also goes to the point of, who holds the power in the workplace. And companies think they have all the power. But, if you institute a policy like that, you may lose really talented workers who will say, well, I don't need this job anymore. I can find one where I only have to be in the office 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Or fully remote. And guess what?
Those
companies exist. Or I could start my own business like you and me.
Yeah. Which is even better.
Yeah.
So many companies, no matter what, do have rules about their expense policy. And
They
a
should.
media company that I love the content, 52. Love the content, love the founders. What a great content. I think I went to like when they launched an event for them. But what was their head of partnerships up to?
Yeah, it was just revealed that one of their executives who ran their studio and I think events had engaged in a couple $100,000 of expense fraud, which is something that was noticed by her colleagues and employees as it was going on, but never really discovered by the company because they
Like people
underwent a
literally
bunch of
started noticing that she was dressing better.
right,
That's how much money she was spending. That is
right,
insane. Listen,
right.
everybody slips in an extra coffee or like a dinner with colleagues. Sure, we're talking about work, not going on Net-a-Porter and just buying yourself clothes.
Right.
Unbelievable. I
Yeah,
can't imagine how she got away with that.
I can't believe a company, even if the CEO turned over 3 or 4 times like this
Yeah.
one, wouldn't have the basic systems and standards to flag a problem like this. I've dealt with a lot of expense issues where we've caught a lot of people doing crazy things with
I mean, in
expenses.
magazines, people have to spend a lot of money to make things happen, and there is room for fraud because of that.
Yeah,
And
I've
there's a
seen.
lot of fancy things around all day.
Yeah, I've seen people do some pretty wild stuff with
Oh, I mean,
expenses.
jewelry would disappear from sets sometimes. Like things happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an employee contemplating it, I could just say that you will
Don't.
get caught eventually, and
You
you'll
will
get
get
fired.
caught. Peter doesn't want to hear this, but like if you sneak in an extra coffee on your expense report once in a
Yes, they
while,
will.
you'll probably be fine. I'm not telling you to defraud, but I'm just saying sneaking in extra coffee once in a while is very different than buying your wardrobe on the company credit card and thinking for a company that does not purchase wardrobe. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And first class and all that stuff. I mean, I represent a lot of executives, and one thing I always flag for them is, do you want to fly business class? Because if you do, let's make sure it's
I just did a contract
authorized.
for a new client where I put in I did flights over 5 hours should be business. What do you usually recommend?
3.
Really? Is that more standard? 3?
I've seen 3, 3.5 is standard. Some say cross country, some say,
Look, I would like an LA flight to be
transcontinental.
business.
Yeah, but you could get a red eye pegged at like 4 and change. You got to be careful though.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, always trying to help people out here.
All right.
But don't cheat on your expenses. I would say if you know, look, I've literally had people who didn't take jobs because of expense policies. I mean, you should know what they are.
What do
If
you
there's
mean?
some,
Like what? Like
like,
what was an expense policy that was so egregious someone didn't want to take a job?
I mean, I've had examples. I mean, business class is one that's come up a lot. There's others that have like companies. It just came out that they were just like so cheap with everything that
I had one job where I had to travel a ton, and the managing editor, who is one of my best friends, would not let us buy water from the minibar at the hotels. So you would
right.
like get to a hotel in random wherever you were doing a shoot, and you were not supposed to expense buying the water. That was not cool.
I would say, like, without getting into specifics, the issue is just like if you get used to working a certain way, being asked to switch it and work in a very different way is difficult for some people. Not
But
everybody.
by the
But
same
for some people.
token, do you think fancy expense policies are kind of going away?
They definitely are. But it also depends on what industry you're in, I would say. I mean, there's
Yeah,
some industries where they still do pretty well for themselves.
that's true. That's true. All right. Who's your hero for the week? Heroes and zeros.
Yeah, so my hero is I will give some context and say I read a lot of stories this week about people who were graduating college who are having a very difficult time getting jobs, no matter what their major is, etc. My hero is Katie Feeney, who is a 22-year-old, just graduated from Penn State, great school, and was just hired by ESPN to be their social media correspondent. She has 14 million followers across her social platforms and just like
I thought
really,
this was like going to be like a friend of Sadie's that I was like, why are we
yeah,
talking
I
about this?
wish, and she could take Sadie with her to ESPN
Yeah.
maybe one day. But I just think it's like a great example of
Hustle.
blazing your own path. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty awesome. I've
Great.
actually never watched a piece of her content. I've just read about it, and I just think it's great and it's an inspiring story. So
I love it.
kudos to her.
Yes. I am going to go with a sappy one again.
Oh boy.
I got to spend time in New England this weekend. I was at a friend's wedding in Maine. It was gorgeous. And then we drove down through New Hampshire, Massachusetts. And I was again reminded just how unbelievably physically gorgeous this country is. Like, we don't talk about the physical incredible exceptionalism of America, but like, we have it's so gorgeous. So getting time out of the place you sit every day and getting to see places like Maine, it's August. If you can escape a little, try to see something else. It's a really good thing.
Does the new Rose Garden count as gorgeous? Is that part of the beauty of the country that you're referring to?
I just keep thinking about the American president at the end where he's like, I remembered I have a rose garden.
Right.
That could be like retconned now to be like,
Right.
I used to have a rose garden.
Right.
And then they put up a parking lot, paved it to put up a parking lot.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. America's a beautiful country. Fun cocktail game is, what do you think the most beautiful state is? And have some
What do you think?
debate about that. We just did that recently. I mean, New York's a strong
New York,
contender in that
obviously,
category.
is the best for everything, I think.
Yeah. New York, California, there's some others.
And I think we have the same zero because
You might have a joint zero.
Yes.
We might have talked about this before.
Yes. So I don't know if you all have seen that some idiots have been throwing dildos at WNBA players at the end of games or during games.
Green ones. During games.
It turns out so share with everybody what it turned out this was about, if you would.
Well, it turns out this incident has happened in a number of games, and they've been thrown on the court at players. Some have made it to the court, some have not. But it turns out that there's a group claiming responsibility for this behind a new coin, a cryptocurrency. And they thought it would be a great way to get attention, to use the WNBA as a vehicle and basically mock their athletes and put them in danger, frankly, to get attention for their coin.
And Donald Trump Jr. retweeted about it and seems to be posted a meme about it, I think.
Yes, with his father throwing one at players playing in the Rose Garden. Look, he's a perennial zero, so let's just leave him on, or perpetual zero. We'll just put him on the side for a second. I mean, this stunt, hopefully it's over, is really disgusting on so many levels. I mean,
throw the
puts
fuck
players
up.
in danger, demeans them. I mean, you can go on and on.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Awful. This is not funny. This is there's a word, puerile. This is what it is. Just being an immature nonsense person.
Right.
In Succession, you are not serious people. These are clearly not serious people.
No.
What was their meeting like? What was their meeting like with their lawyer and their head of comms saying, here's how we're going to market?
I have to tell you, whenever a client comes to me with a job offer to go to a crypto company, I spend a lot of time trying to talk them out of it. I mean, they are pens of insane behavior. I mean, probably the worst companies I deal with are crypto companies.
And no boundaries.
No boundaries, no rules, bros to the max, just like insane behavior.
All right. So the one to grow on from this conversation, don't throw sex toys at people.
Particularly women.
Women, professionals working.
Wow. Exactly.
What were other ones to grow on?
Well, I mean, we started this podcast talking about corporate campaigns and corporate image campaigns and Sydney Sweeney and this is just purely a stunt built off making fun of a group of people.
Think about the stunt and how it could backfire on you. Also, all right, Peter, with these great words of advice, we're going to leave people. We're going to thank Sadie Raybar for again producing this great episode, and
hope everyone's enjoying the summer, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you got to do a little of that too.
Yeah, enjoy the summer.
All right,
have fun.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.